The Star is embarking on a campaign titled Protect Our Pockets, which seeks to highlight key issues faced by Malaysians, such as the cost of food, transportation, policy making, financial education, and smart consumerism.
So this Protect Our Pockets roundtable discussion tonight is the first one, and I'll leave it to Dato' Ong Sai Wan to share with you all.
Thanks, Johnson. Okay, the idea of having a discussion on this first arose because we were concerned about the cost of living. Just to throw some stats in you guys, cost of food has gone up by 83% in the past 3 to 4 years. Rice alone has gone up 23%. So the cost of things go up. Like Dr. Winston said, it's very easy to bash the government. But what do we do?
Actually, in the whole supply chain, the most competitive is at the retail end. Because I know the hypermarkets, because we've had dialogues with them, they monitor each other's price not by day but by the hour. So if somebody goes up, they're changing their price. Now that is competition. And when there's competition at the retail end, that means consumers benefit. Yeah? But it's what you say is the back end, that's where a lot of nonsense happens. And one very important thing that you said that we intend to bring it up is, I know this is not supposed to be known by the consumer. Manufacturers are telling Carrefour, are telling Giant, are telling Tesco, this is the price you can sell, or else we won't give it to you. That is against the competition policy in every country. But it's being done now. We don't have the mechanism, now we have the law. You know? And this is how people at the back manipulate the market. Of course, at the end of the day, when you go, you're not happy because you buy from Carrefour and it's expensive. But as you say, we are under pressure, but this is unacceptable in the law. In any country in the world, this is part of competition. They should be, I know how they beat the system, they sell at the price that the manufacturer, we also know who they are, and give you some kind of free gift or something that has a benefit to the consumer. But retailers or anybody selling should be able to fix the price and compete with others. That's how we benefit.
And actually the fundamental question isn't about whether I reduce private vehicles. It's actually about whether I can try to move people instead of cars, right? So that's a kind of different thinking. Because what I'm saying is, if I've got a car in place, be it a taxi, right, how do we maximize the most of that car? And as I said, carry the most people possible, right? So I think that whole thinking needs to be in place, as opposed to saying, let us try and reduce car ownership, you know? The premise of moving people rather than cars should be the overriding concern. I think second thing is when we look at public transport, the challenge sometimes we don't see is the last mile. The last mile. And I think, you know, having studied in more temperate countries, it's definitely walkable. But in Malaysia, it's very challenging to walk the last mile between where I live and where the public transport place is. So I think, you know, when you talk about public transport, you've got to couple it with things like pedestrianizing the place, making sure there's proper access and walkways so that the public transport gives more bang for buck.
In our company, we have contrary to popular belief that there is a high number of expatriates in working for us, we don't really have a high number of expatriates. But what we do have then are people that we import from overseas for various reasons. And the good news is because of that, we benchmark the pay based on them, which means we inevitably will have to up the amount of money that we're going to pay for everybody. Otherwise, we see a huge gap between, say, one senior manager versus one junior manager, for example. So when we take in talents from abroad or when we import some different kind of talents to bring that much more innovation and changes to the market, to our business, basically, we then up the amount that we pay the other Malaysians as well.
When you talk about foreign talent, you do need it in certain sectors. You know, like for example, Malaysia is looking at the solar energy or solar cells. Right? We need solar engineers. Right? So this is foreign talent that we need to bring in, like Singapore does, and so on. But we do have an issue when it comes to foreign labor. Right? Because Philip will tell you, you know, when we calculate our GNI is the GDP minus whatever we repatriate outside the country. So the more foreign labor you bring, the more they're going to be repatriating. So it may not be a positive impact to us. Where we face problems is social issues. We do have classes who don't want to work, who prefer to go into, say, cancerism, rather than come in and do the shop floor in a carpool, do the stacking in a carpool, right? So these are social issues that we are beginning to address. We are addressing actively, and it's something that I think the public needs to come forward to address as well. It's educating these youth to say, you know what, it doesn't pay in the long run. It's better to just get the work done.
How many of your children or grandchildren, you say, where do you want to eat? Will say kway teow or nasi lemak. What's the first place that comes to your mind? You all answer. So that is the power of an organization that is reaching children at the youngest age. Yeah? And today in research, US, in European countries, have not done it here yet. It's the most materialistic society. It's a society that at a very young age gets bonded to brands, and they define themselves as brands. Now when you start doing that, now this is where the issue comes later. You cannot afford, you still buy, because the appearance is more important than the substance. You buy a car not to get from point A to point B because it makes you look great. In fact, advertisement is your status is elevated, not your car is safe. No? So when you have this values is, okay, then the whole issue of cost of living comes, because now there is a gap between what you can afford and what you actually spend.
I think basic smart consumerism is spent within your means. That is a basic rule. You can come up with all the formulas of eating food, then when you go to shop, then you won't buy that much food stuff. But the thing is that certain people are buying out of habit. I think it's habitual rather than anything else. So if you learn to live and says, I only have got $56 at the end of the day, you should save what? I think the AKPK formula is 50%. That's before saving. 20% for whatever. Then you know how much you want to spend. Now, that should be how we become smart consumers.
The outcome will be resolutions on how the government can further address the rising cost of living and protect consumers' pockets. There will also be an online campaign for the people to support the resolutions, which will then be submitted to the Prime Minister.